Chapter 26, inflation. We're talking about inflation. We're talking about a persistent rise in the price of goods and services within an economy. What is inflation? Inflation can be defined as a general and continuing rise in prices. If the price of goods and services are going up generally in the economy over a period of time, inflation is said to exist. For example, according to that's a story, we don't think that. So a persistent rise in the price of goods or services, prices of goods and services within an economy is considered to be inflation. Then if there's a general fall in the price of goods and services within the economy, we call it deflation. So both inflation and deflation is as a result of aggregate demand, which is the total demand within the economy. So if there's inflation, it would have been as a result of increasing aggregate demand within the economy. And for deflation, deflation represents a fall in aggregate demand within the economy. Clear? So if there's deflation, the economy will be slowing down. Things will not be fine because it means firms will not be making much revenue as they used to make. Did you get the point?
Yeah.
We'll go down. Government usually measure and monitor the rate of inflation. So how to measure the rate of inflation? We use the Consumer Price Index, CPI, to measure inflation. And the formula for CPI is the cost of the food basket of the present year divided by the cost of food basket of the base year multiplied by 100. CPI.
Cost of the food?
Food basket of the present year divided by the cost of food basket of the base year multiplied by 100. So we can say CPI equals to C base T over C base O base O multiplied by 100. C base T divided by C base O multiplied by 100. That is CPI. Clear?
Yeah.
So that is what we use in measuring the CPI of the country. I think it's clear.
Yeah.
So when you're measuring the CPI, what you have to put in mind is that the cost of housing is not always part of the items in the food basket. The cost of item is not always part of the cost of housing is not always part of the food item that you have to calculate. Clear?
Yeah.
We'll move on. Types of inflation. For types of inflation, we are talking about the causes of inflation or the reasons for inflation. Inflation may be caused by different factors, and there is often some disagreement about the importance of each one. This is because different economists have different views about the causes of inflation. The first type of inflation we have here is demand pull inflation. For demand pull inflation, it's as a result of increasing aggregate demand within the economy. So let's read. Some economists argue that inflation can be caused by too much demand in the economy. That's increasing too much aggregate demand within the economy. That will bring about demand pull inflation. I said, okay, if demand increases, there will be an increase in price. So what you're saying is that as soon as demand continues to rise in the economy, prices will go up. So if aggregate demand increases, there will be an increase in the general price level. Aggregate demand is the total demand in the economy. So demand pull inflation could be caused by. So I've explained what demand pull inflation is. Inflation caused by increasing aggregate demand within the economy. That is demand pull inflation. And what is aggregate demand? Aggregate demand is the total demand within an economy. So what brings about demand pull inflation? Number one, rising consumer spending encouraged by tax cuts or low interest rates. Two things here. Consumer spending has happened. So what is the reason why we have consumer spending, increasing consumer spending? It could be as a result of cutting tax or low interest rates. So let's take it one at a time. For cutting tax, if there's a tax cut, it means disposable income increases for households. As a result of that, they can spend more. Spending more would increase their spending and purchasing power. As a result, demand pull inflation would come because demand would have increased in that economy. Low interest rate. Low interest rate represents cheap borrowing. As a result of that, money supply would increase within the economy because people can borrow more. So because money supply is increasing within the economy, demand for goods and services would rise. leading to demand pull inflation.
Inflation.
Is the first one clear? The second one, sharp increase in government spending. Government spending represents subsidies. And when there's subsidies, the cost of production reduces for firms. As a result of that, they can sell at a lower price.
Yeah.
Selling at a lower price based on the law of demand. The higher the price, the higher the quantity, the lower the quantity demanded. The lower the price, the higher the quantity demanded. Now the price is less. Demand will increase, leading to an increase in the aggregate demand within the economy, making it possible to have demand pull inflation. Is it clear?
Yes.
The third point, rising demand for resources by firms. Sorry, please. We'll continue now. So the third one, rising demand for resources by firms. Another reason why we could have demand pull inflation is increasing demand by firms in terms of resources they need. You know, firms, they also need to buy resources. As soon as the demand within the economy increases, firms will have to extend or expand their output. And to get this done, they have to buy more resources. So increasing demand for resources will bring about demand pull inflation for the suppliers. Is it clear?
Yeah.
And the last one is booming demand for exports. Export represents what we sell to our foreign customers. So increasing demand of exports would be as a result of cheap exports. That means we are internationally competitive. So if the country is internationally competitive, demand for our exports would rise. As a result of that, demand pull inflation would occur due to cheaper products, cheaper exportation. So these are the reasons why we have demand pull inflation. The first one is about cut in taxes or low interest rates. The second one is about government spending, which represents subsidies. The third one is rising demand for resources by firms. They need more resources. And that means demand for more resources will bring about demand pull inflation. And the last one is booming demand for export, which is as a result of cheap exports, which makes the country to become internationally competitive. So these things will bring about demand pull inflation. Any question about that?
Yeah.
And demand pull inflation is what? An inflation as a result of increasing aggregate demand within the economy. And we're talking about aggregate demand, we're talking about the total demand within the economy. Clear?
Yeah.
Good. We'll slow down. Cost push. Are you there? For cost push inflation, we're talking about an increasing cost of production. So when there's an increasing cost of production, firms will not have any other choice than to increase their prices if they still need to make profit. As a result of that, prices increases. Cost push inflation. So there's a cost now. It has to be pushed over to consumers in terms of high prices. Clear? That is what we call cost push. Clear? Good. So what are the reasons why we have cost push? Just go down to the third paragraph. It has been suggested that cost push inflation, are you there? It has been suggested that cost push inflation in the UK has been caused by rising costs of imported goods, such as oil. So we won't talk about the story. I will just explain reasons for cost push inflation. An increasing cost of importation will bring about cost push inflation. Increasing cost of importation. So this is what it means. There are some businesses that what they do is importation. So if what they buy in terms of what they import to the country, the price is increasing, it represents an increasing cost of production for them. So if their cost of production is increasing due to what the amounts they pay on what they use to buy from what they import to the country, they wouldn't have any other choice than to increase their prices too. That is about cost push inflation due to high price of importation. So high price of importation would bring about cost push inflation. The first one. Two, wage increases. For wage increase, we're talking about what you pay to your employees, right? So now let's put it this way. As soon as there's inflation within the economy, employees will put pressure on the employers to increase their salary or wages. Yes or no?
Yeah.
So firms will not have any other choice, especially if productivity is increasing for them and they can pass on the cost to consumers. They will increase the wage rate.
Yeah.
So if they increase the wage rate, what happens afterwards? It comes back to paying more by consumers. That is another reason why we have cost push inflation. Get the point? Increasing wage rates. But wage rates will not just increase. It would have been as a result of increasing living standards. That employees, what they used to buy, their living standards has become less because they cannot afford what they used to afford. So they don't have any other choice than to tell their employers to increase their salary. So increasing this brings about cost push inflation. Because as soon as firms yield to their request, it would have meant that they are able to pass on the cost to consumers, increasing cost of production, cost push inflation. So wage has increased. As a result of that, it increases the cost of production for firms. Firms have to increase prices to transfer that cost to consumers. Clear?
Clear.
The third one, increases in taxation can also cause cost push inflation. So an increase in taxation represents an increase in cost of production because when taxation increases, profit of firms reduces. But firms want to make more profit. And to make more profit, they have to increase the prices. As a result, cost push inflation will occur or exist. Is it clear?
Yeah. Okay.
The relationship between inflation and interest rates. Are you there? What is the relationship between inflation and interest rates? Interest rate is the price of borrowing or saving. Inflation is the persistent rise in the price of goods and services. These two things have something in common. And what they have in common is money. So, if government of a country wants to correct inflation or want to reduce inflation, they would increase interest rates. So when they increase interest rates, what happens? Money supply would fall because people would rather save than spend. As a result of that, money supply would not circulate anymore because money is stuck in the bank. Because everyone wants to enjoy that interest rate. They want to exploit it.
Yeah.
So that would reduce spending, purchasing power, disposable income. All these things will stop. As a result of that, inflation, demand for inflation would reduce. That's his relationship. Do you get it?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Should I explain again or it's clear?
I think so. Because I have monetized so don't really understand. I just looked at it.
Monetarists are those economists who believe that there's always a relationship between money supply and inflation. So they believe it's because there's flow of money. That's why there's inflation. Because when there's flow of money, people have a lot of money with them, they will be able to spend more. So take the money away from in circulation, the inflation would reduce. That's the point.
Okay.
Did you get it now?
Yeah.
So that's for monetarists. And okay, so the relationship between interest rates and inflation is that there's money in between.
Yeah.
And for monetarist economists, they believe money is the reason why, flow of money within the economy is the reason why we have inflation. So to correct demand pull inflation, we have to reduce money supply. And to reduce money supply, to reduce money in circulation, you have to come up with a policy or monetary policy of interest rates, which is increasing the interest rates. So as soon as you increase the interest rate, the price of savings increases. So there will be incentive for people to save more.
Yeah.
So money will leave circulation, money will leave the economy, going into the bank. So people will not want to spend, rather they want to save. As a result of that, demand pull inflation would reduce. Inflation is solved. Clear?
Oh.
So go to prices now. One of the main problems, the impact of inflation now. The impact of inflation on prices is the first thing. One of the main problems of inflation is that prices are rising. As a result, inflation reduces the purchasing power of money. This means that people cannot buy as much with their income. Therefore, households will experience a fall in their living standards. However, if incomes are rising faster than prices, this may not be a problem for individuals. When there's inflation, the purchasing power of individuals reduces. As a result, we won't be able to spend as we used to spend. But if there's inflation and our income level is increasing at the same time at a faster rate than inflation rate, there won't be a problem because we'll still be able to buy or afford what we used to afford. Is it clear?
Yeah.
So there's always an impact on prices due to inflation. It means that prices will continue to rise. As a result of that, the purchasing power of money reduces. People will not be able to buy what they used to buy.
Yeah.
If their income is not increasing.
Yeah.
That's it. The impact of inflation on wages. Wages are the amount of money you earn as an individual, right? As an employee. So when prices are rising, workers need to increase their wages to compensate for the loss in purchasing power. So if price continue to rise, workers will not have any other choice than to put pressure on employers to increase their salary or wages so that they can be able to buy what they used to buy. However, as a result of higher wages, firms may need to raise their prices because costs are rising. If this pattern is repeated, the wages prices spiral develops. That means wages increases, price increases. Price increases, wages increases. That's what they call wages spiral, wages prices spiral.
Yeah.
So this means that higher prices lead to higher wages, which then leads to higher prices and so on. So higher prices make you to pressurize your employers to pay more. As long as your employers pay more, they shift it, they transfer the high cost to the consumers. The price becomes higher. You also a consumer, you also buy.
Yeah.
Now you're buying at a higher price. You go back again to continue to ask for more. That's what called wages prices spiral. It develops.
Yeah.
And continue on and on and on. Is it clear? So if this continues to happen, there's going to be a problem because there's going to be a stage where employers will not want to pay more and employees will not want to accept.
Yeah.
Trade union will come into it. And if they are unable to compromise or to reach an agreement, there will be strike. And if there's strike, both employers and employees would lose out. Employers will lose out due to the fact that they won't be creating any output. And when there's no output, what do you want to sell? Employees will lose out because they won't be paid wages too. Is it clear?
Okay.
The impact of inflation on exports. If inflation is higher at home than in other countries, firms will find it difficult to sell in overseas markets. So if there's domestic inflation, it means the price of exports would increase. And as a result of that, we become less internationally competitive. Our foreign customers will start seeking for alternatives. As a result, our balance of payments current account would.
Yeah, can you give me a real life explanation of how they fit into
For exports? Okay, Libya rely on petroleum, right?
Yeah.
So if price of petroleum increases, countries like Turkey, for example, I don't know, countries like Turkey, Italy, that imports from us, that we sell to, would not want to buy from us again because the price of our export has risen.
Yeah. As
As a result, we won't be able to sell as we used to sell.
Yeah.
That means no more revenue coming in. It will affect our balance of payments. That's it. Clear?
Yes.
Unemployment. To solve unemployment problem, to solve unemployment, prices must increase. And to stop prices increasing, you must increase unemployment. So when an economy is witnessing high inflation rates will come as a result of increasing demand within the economy.
Yeah.
So for firms to for government to correct it, we must increase unemployment so that people don't have jobs.
Yeah.
It is when they don't have jobs, they won't be able to purchase. That is the point. Do you get it?
Yes.
Let's read. High level of inflation usually means that aggregate demand is rising. As a result, firms will be keen to increase output since the price of goods is increasing. This means that firms will need to recruit more workers, which reduces unemployment. So it has been suggested in the past that a trade-off exists between inflation and unemployment. This means that if the government wants to reduce inflation, it will have to accept higher levels of unemployment. Do you get it? So for inflation to reduce, unemployment must increase. Clear? So as soon as prices increases within the economy, it would have been as a result of increasing demand within the economy. So if demand is increasing within the economy, output must increase. Firms must produce more to meet up with the demand within the economy.
Yeah.
As a result of that, unemployment would fall.
Well,
So if unemployment continues to fall at this point in time, income level would rise for households. They will start buying more.
well,
Aggregate demand will
Yeah.
increase. Aggregate demand will increase, inflation, demand will
Mhm.
inflation.
Yeah.
Do you get it?
Yes.
So that is the point there. So for inflation to reduce,
Mhm.
we have to increase unemployment.
Yeah.
Clear.
Yeah.
Menu costs. These are price tags.
Mhm.
Price tags.
Yeah.
So if inflation continues to increase, if prices continue to increase over time, it means businesses that uses price tag, all businesses use price tag anyway. So it means they have to continuously change their price tag. So they have to print new papers every now and then. That represents the cost. Menu cost, clear.
Okay.
Shoe leather cost. This is when customers have to move around to check the best bargain before they buy, because due to the fact that prices are increasing. So they know prices are increasing everywhere, but they want to move as much as they can to find the cheapest. Your shoe leather cost. Your shoe could get spoiled as a result of that. Clear.
Clear.
Uncertainty. If inflation is high and varying, firms do not know what price will be in 3 or 6 months' time. And predicting years ahead becomes impossible. However, decisions have to be made now, which will affect the business in the long term. Inflation creates uncertainty, which makes planning for the future very difficult. Making investment decisions is particularly difficult. This is discussed below, so you don't have to read further. When there's inflation, it brings about uncertainty. You won't be able to predict what happens after today, after tomorrow, next week, next month, next 3 weeks. You can't predict. That means you cannot plan ahead. Planning ahead becomes difficult. As a result, businesses would find it difficult to invest because they cannot. They wouldn't know what happens with price over time. So investment fall at that point in time. Clear? Not only them, even customers, they won't be able to, they won't be able to plan on what they want to purchase over. They won't be able to have a budget because whatever budget they have today, when they get there tomorrow, it becomes deficit. They spend more than what they have budgeted for. So their actual budget is always more than the we call it the actual and the actual and the actual budget and the is it the predicted one? I forgot. There's a term we use for it. But what I'm saying is that what you have budgeted for, you might spend more than what you have budgeted for. So you'll be having a deficit. That is the point I'm making. I think it's clear.
Yeah.
Business and consumer confidence. Because there's inflation within the economy, business would not be able to invest. They can't invest because they don't know how prices would fall. They don't know what happens with prices over time. So whatever they want to, investment will stop. They won't try to invest and they won't want to expand. They won't want to increase their output because the cost is increasing every now and then. And this might bring about unemployment within the economy because firms are unable to expand. It's only when they expand they can employ more workers. Do you get it? Yeah, we call it unfavorable budget. It's unfavorable when you spend more than your actual budget. It means it's not favorable. Yes, it's not favorable. So that is the point there. I think it's clear. So for consumers, they don't have confidence about the future. They don't have confidence about their spending. They might fast forward their purchasing to another time. Firms will stop investment. As a result of that, there's going to be unemployment within the economy. Unemployment will arise as a result of firms not expanding. They are not expanding because demand within the economy is falling. Nobody is buying. So what's the point of expanding? So businesses stop investing, consumers stop purchasing. The economy is in decline. Clear. if hyperinflation exists, where prices increases are out of control, rising at several hundreds of thousands % a year, for example, money may not be accepted as a means of payment. So for hyperinflation, that means there's high level of inflation. The inflation rate is not controllable. The value of money becomes useless.
Is it like Turkey right now?
Is there hyperinflation in Turkey?
Yeah.
I have to confirm that.
Yeah. But the inflation.
There's inflation rate, but
Yeah.
you wouldn't call it hyperinflation, because when you talk about hyperinflation, it goes to the value of the currency. So there might be high inflation rates, maybe not hyperinflation.
Okay. Oh, see.
High inflation rates.
Okay.
So when it is very, that is hyper.
Yeah, so I wanna see if there's any correlation.
Okay, good. So if there's hyperinflation, both customers and businesses are worried. They can't do anything. Nobody even have anything to offer, because money is valueless. It could lead to civil war. It could become a problem. Social unrest, protests everywhere, because people will be going into poverty. People will be moving into poverty. Clear. So what happens with inflation and investments? Inflation often results in a decline in business investment. This is because investment requires spending quite large amounts of money, now in the hope of returns over a future period of time. Owing to the uncertainty about future prices created by inflation and the lack of business confidence among decision makers, investment projects are likely to be postponed or cancelled. This will have a negative impact on economic growth and the future level of employment in the economy. If there's inflation, high inflation rate, or if there's inflation, businesses will lose confidence. They won't have that,